This is your explanation of your Fitday assignment. So I am in the screen that you are all working in. The first thing you want to do is make sure that you have all of your screenshots in. Notice that for the second screenshot where you hit nutrition right here, you need to also include at least the bottom row of your foods eaten. This is so that I can double check this number here, the 1764 calories, with the report above and make sure that you're actually giving me data from the same day. So you'll do your day 1, your day 2, your day 3. For your last two screenshots, you will go into your latest day. So if you did March 23, 24, 25, you might go to March 25. In this case, they went into March 29th. And then it does 1 week. You can see that here it averages out 1 week prior, but including March 29th. You need to make sure that your 3 days, and only your 3 days that you recorded information on, fall into this 1 day window for this report and for this one here. The next thing that I would do if I were you is I would read through all of this stuff and I would make a little note somewhere of all of the numbers that I need. I would go through my screenshots and I would write down all of the numbers that I need so that when you're doing your write-up, you don't have to scroll through all of this stuff over and over and over again. Instead, you have all your data sitting right beside you there and you can just start to write. Okay, we're going to go through every part of this now. Part 1 is your hypothesis. You got your hypothesis back, you type it in, you explain whether it was right or wrong and what it might mean. So here's an example for you. Imagine these were your calcium numbers. You include your daily numbers. They may be percentage RDA of a vitamin or mineral. They may be number of servings in a food group. They may be number of grams of fat, carbs, or protein. In any event, you will give me your daily data and your average number, and then you will explain whether your hypothesis was accurate or not, and then interpret that. For example, this hypothesis was incorrect, but it's good news about my diet, that I'm getting more calcium than required. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. So being right or wrong does not matter. Your ability to interpret your data does. Second part here, you will go to that BMR calculator sheet, which there's a link to from the course doc. Here's what it looks like. You may remember this. You should have one in your binder. You fill this in. We all did this together in class one day. And you find out at the end how many calories you're supposed to eat every day. You then compare that number with your calories eaten from your screenshots. And you give me every day's number, and you talk about whether that number is too high, too low, or if it's a good number, and then you also discuss the average. Then you do this part here that's written in black. You explain whether you want to do anything about that. If you are trying to lose weight, and you're ingesting a few fewer calories every day than it says you require, perhaps that's a good thing since you want to drop weight. Fats, carbs, and protein. You are going to look at the chart from class. It's in the course doc. If we scroll down a little bit, we can find it. Link to fat, carb, and protein notes. And in here, part of this table will be your information about how many grams of each of those energy yielding nutrients you need per day. There it is right there on this chart. So you will compare your numbers every day and your average to these three. Those numbers are found on your pie charts beside the pie chart. Here we have 87.7 grams of fat, 174.7 grams of carbs, 79.8 grams of protein for that day, for that person's intake. So those are the numbers that you use for part 3. You also will discuss your saturated versus unsaturated fat numbers. Vitamins and minerals. This is in 2 parts. The first part involves giving me an overview. Are you getting your vitamins and minerals or not? Here is an example. This is the kind of language you're going to use. Most, some, half, few, hardly any, almost all. Remember that you have 3 categories that you're comparing. Those that are in a good range, which we define right here, right in front of you right here, as being between 80 and 120% of the RDA, versus those that are below and those that are above 120. Those numbers come from this average report in the far right-hand column of each of these three tables, percent RDA. These are the numbers that you're going to use. What I will be doing when I evaluate this is I will tally up, I will count how many are between 80 and 120, how many are over, how many are under, and then when I read your analysis later, I'll want to know whether or not what you say, how you describe this situation, is actually accurate. Some of you have asked about this whole business of some of them having just the line where there's nothing. You'll notice whenever that happens, it's a double. So there's 2 vitamin E's. I have no idea why Fitday does that. It's always been like that. I can't tell you why. I just don't know. But just ignore it. It doesn't matter. And there's no data there for you to use anyhow. So it doesn't really matter. After you give me that generalized overview, you're then going to use your class notes. Again, we go to the course doc. This is farther down. Here's the vitamin and mineral information. And if you recall, we did this in a bunch of different formats. You worked in groups to create this. So you should have printed some version or a couple of versions of this for your notes, but it's here for you if you haven't. So you click on one of these and you will talk about 2 of those particular vitamins and minerals. There are 6 in each class to choose from. And for those ones, you're going to give me your actual numbers, and you're going to talk about if you think that is a concern for you and why or why not. And here are 2 examples for you of how to do that. Your chart, your Canada's Food Guide chart. Whenever you're making a table or a chart, you have to have your rows and your columns labeled. This list of things here is the labels that you're going to use for either your rows or your columns, and on the other axis, you're going to have all 4 of your food groups. You go to table up here at the top, insert a table, and you can make it however big you require. Then what you do is you put all of your numbers from your food log sheets, your totals for every day, you add those up, you average those out, then you start making your comments. You're going to comment on every food group. Are you over or under? Then, how does this relate to one of your vitamins or minerals? So for example, if you're not getting enough calcium and your milk and alternatives numbers are also low, this is not a coincidence. It makes sense that that would be true. Then on the food guide, here's the food guide over here. You have a hard copy of this, but you can Google it and you can get to this screen. This is a PDF. If you go to get my own copy, I think it's called, you can end up here. And if you expand this a little bit, you'll be able to read a little bit better. But this is the extra information over here on the right about how to make the best choices in every food group. And I want you to tell me if you're following this advice or not. And you have to relate it to your 3 days worth of food. Because that's what we're analyzing. So the fact that you normally eat whole grains is irrelevant at this point in the assignment. You can discuss that later, but for now, we're focusing on just the 3 days that you analyzed. So if you tell me that you eat a lot of salmon regularly, and then I look through your screenshots and your log sheets and there's no salmon anywhere, then that's just not accurate. You're not analyzing the data that you gave me appropriately. It may be true, but it wasn't true of those particular 3 days that you chose to record. Calories eaten and burned. For this one, we look at your 3rd screenshot for every day. This one here. Are you burning more than this person this day burned more than they ate? Is that the case for you? You will discuss every day. And then, just like the one for ingesting appropriate calories in part 2 here, you'll make a comment about what you're trying to do with your weight, if anything. So for instance, in my case, I'm always trying to lose a few pounds. So if I was eating more than I'd burn, I would have a problem with that because that's not what I want to be doing right now. Your case may be different. You may be content with where you're at, and then you can say that. That's fine. Nutrition and disease, part 7. You're going to discuss, as it says here, one of the diseases that we learned about in class. The PowerPoint, or not the PowerPoint, the Google presentations are now in your Google Docs for the 2 classes. Use the information from there. And that applies to everything. Use the information when we're talking about vitamins and minerals and what foods you should include in your diet to boost those numbers. Use what we have in our notes. This is not a research project. You're not getting other sources of information. Finally, the most important part. Now that you know what you know about your diet, and now that you have formed some opinions about how you're eating, what on earth do you do about it? As we talked about in class, I want specific plans or promises or action plans. What are you going to do, and when and where is this going to happen? So saying I'm low in grains, I need to eat more grains is not good enough. I'm low in grains, give me the number. What was your average intake? It was only 3 when I needed 6, for example. Then explain how you're going to fix that. What are you going to do differently? I am going to have 2 slices of toast every morning for breakfast. Done. That would be 1. You're going to use the numbers from Fitday, the numbers that are in your screenshots above. You're going to give me those numbers here, and you're going to tell me exactly how you're going to fix them. If you're going to do something like decrease your grams of fat, then you need to tell me what you're going to replace that with. And that's the third example here. My striped food intake is too high. Obviously, that's make-believe. I will stop eating striped sandwiches and eat polka dot sandwiches, since apparently those are a better choice, instead from now on. This is also in part 8 where you discuss whether or not this is a true representation of your diet. So as I was mentioning before, if normally you were eating more fish but you didn't happen to on those 3 days, you can say that here. This is, after all, just a 3-day snapshot of our overall food intake. So it's understandable if things are a little bit off. Why or why not? Discuss anything else. So those of you that are ingesting the protein powders, taking vitamin and mineral supplements, any of those things that you recorded on your log sheets, you weren't allowed to put into the website, you can talk about those things here. Then make sure you follow this advice, double check all your spelling and grammar, make sure you've read the instructions, make sure you look at the rubric. There are a lot of marks on the line for this assignment, and midterm marks are coming up. So make sure that you read everything carefully and that you follow the advice in this video.